All right, welcome everybody. François Letarte, JDR D30, and I'll make a small ramble about Stellar Adventure, a role-playing game published by Orion Games, written by Graham Butley and Jonathan Hicks. And this is the science fiction version of Advanced Fighting Fantasy, a game that I really love. Probably one of my best fantasy role-playing game, my favorite one. Very good game. Well, in my opinion, for my taste. And this is the science fiction version of that. Well, fighting fantasy and all that, this is the fighting fantasy game book created by Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone. This is the role playing game of that. Yes, this is the science fiction version of that. I want to flip through it. Eventually I want to make a full review. Someday I will do a full review of that game. Okay. I'm doing that since some friend asked me about this game, what I was thinking about, so I answered to him. But, it inspired me maybe just to talk about it. My memory is quite sparse about this one because I've read it when I've received it. It was part of a Kickstarter. I've read it, and I remember that I had a blast reading it. Okay. I'm already sold to advanced fighting fantasy, and especially science fiction version of it, because there's some nostalgia tied to it. Okay, my first ever fighting fantasy book I ever owned when I was younger, it was Rings of Kelter. I've read some fighting fantasy books before. But I rented them at the library, okay? But the first one that that my father bought to me was Rings of Kelter. So since it was mine, I could read it as much as I wanted, and I read it and I read it. So science fiction tied to the fighting fantasy genre, has a special place in my heart. So I was very excited to see what it was all about. Though, when I first read it, I didn't know what to expect. I remember that I really loved it. Okay, this is a very flexible game system. Okay, it starts with hero creation. If you are aware of the fighting fantasy style, you have the skill, stamina, luck, which are the three basic stats. And there, for the science fiction version, there's psionics and tech. Okay, psionics is more like special powers. Okay, it's obvious. And tech is a stat applied to robot characters. Yes, you can play robots, and there are rules for that. Species. There are some sample species into that, but there's no. Okay, on the contrary of, on the opposite of advanced fighting fantasy is tied to the Titan world, which is the game world where the fighting fantasy game books are all staged. Okay, this is the world, the setting. Yes, there are some sort of a setting for the science fiction part of fighting fantasy, but it's not very defined. So here it's more a toolbox to do whatever setting you want. Okay, so there are some sample species more to show you how to do them. It's more a toolbox for you to create them. Okay. And the special skills, of course, like in fighting fantasy, which will add up a number. If you take a special skill, it will add up to your basic skill score and will help you succeed into what you're trying to do. Some talents, which is quite standard in fighting fantasy. It's something special that your character do. There are mutations. Okay, if you want to do mutations, makes me think a lot about the game, a game that I've played a couple of times, Metamorphosis Alpha. So you could recreate that game feel. Okay, some sample characters. Okay, as you can see, the sheet is quite easy to understand. You have the basic attributes, the special skills are there. The weapons, the way it works. Maybe I will just make a review on how it works. I know that I've talked to it into my some of the advanced fighting fantasy videos that I've made, but just for the ease of the people who may watch this and not know the other game, okay? Um, this is a very simple game, okay? You have usually you have to roll 2d6 and get equal or less your skill score to succeed into a task. Um, and you add your special skill to your skill score, so yeah, you just have a better chance to succeed. That's basically it. If you rolled a double one, it's a critical success. Double six, a critical failure. Okay. This is for standard check. If you want to roll for an opposed roll, well, it's you do it the other way. Okay, you add up to your skill score and add to it your special skill if there's one tied to what you're trying to do, and you compare that to your opponent roll, plus its skill and all that. And yeah, and double six now becomes critical success, and double one critical failures. Okay, it's very easy like that. Okay, in advanced fighting fantasy, the modifiers. If you want to put modifiers, there were modifiers for many situations, but not general ones. Okay, you had more precise things. I've played the game a lot, and I could eyeball the stuff a little, easier with practice. Here, well, there's the eyeballing table. Okay, the classic. This is very easy. Okay, and what is the modifier to your skill, which I think suits the game very well. It gives a good idea on what should be easy or very easy. This is a number, that talks by itself, and I would easily transfer that to the normal fighting fantasy. And there's the lock skill, of course, using your lock, something that happens often in the fighting fantasy game books. Okay, test your luck. Okay, if you're unlucky, well, something very nasty will happen, right? So many rules to different standard situations. Okay, climbing, suffocation, falling, and all that, and the experience point. Okay, combat, fairly easy. Yeah, you have the weapon. Each weapon something that is very neat with advanced fighting fantasies, all weapon damage works. Every weapons has their own chart of the number of stamina points that will remove for a successful attack. So, and you have to roll d6 and check out on the table, what is the number. Okay, which makes every weapon has its own little curve. Something that is quite cool is that the fumble tables, you have fumble tables depending on the type of weapon you're using. Okay, hand-to-hand weapons, projectile weapons, energy missile, energy hand-to-hand weapon, energy missile weapon. Okay, you have all sorts of fumble tables and critical hits too. Okay, critical hit results. Okay, which is something that you didn't have in regular advanced fighting fantasy. Now you have a critical hit result. So you have a special effect depending on the type of weapon you want to use. All right, using luck in combat, personal versus vehicle rules. Okay. It's very they give a person a very easy formula. Okay, you kind of halve the damage if you're a personal, with the handgun shooting a vehicle. You halve the damage, and it takes double stamina if for the reverse side. A weapon that is mounted on a vehicle. Okay, so if you shoot someone a person, okay, a character, it will double damage. All the combat option, if I remember, we're quite diverse. Okay, this is something that adds up to what may seems to be a very simple game system. Well, this adds up lots of spice to what you're trying to do. All the weapons, all right, healing. How do you heal? The equipment. Okay. Yeah, there's quite a good chapter on equipment, that covers up what you may expect from a science fiction setting. Not much pages, but you have guidelines to do whatever you can. Oh yeah, the robot types, the robots. There's a whole chapter on robots, and yeah, you have all the recipe to create your own robot and be a robot character. The robots are divided into different types. Usually, if you want to be a player character robot, you have to be a Type 5 robot, which is the highest type available. And it eases up the use of robot into your games. Okay, some example of robots. Vehicles. So you can design your own vehicle. All the rules are there. Some examples. Starships, the same. Okay. And the rules are cool, fighting with starships, space combat, making maneuvers. When I read that, it felt easy. It felt that you can tell a story about what you're trying to do with your starship without having the rules getting in your way. Okay, I felt that it could really, make something interesting about this. I don't remember everything, but I just remember just flipping through it, and I remember it. It was quite cool. Yeah, the space combat is very, you don't do it with a map and all the miniatures and all that. You just tell a story. You're trying to gain advantage against your enemy in space, and yeah, you have some rules to. If you have a big starship, okay, a huge battleship in space, how do you give out orders to make the maneuvers for your big starship and all that? Okay, there's the psionic rules. Yeah, there are some psionic. Well, they suggest some sort of psionic traditions. Okay, which covers up what we could see in different science fiction setting. Okay, we can easily simulate what we could see in Babylon 5 as when it comes to psionics, or Star Trek, or even the Force in Star Wars. Okay, there's something called dark power. I think it's inspired by the dark side of the Force. But yeah, you can easily use that. Chapter 8, aliens. So you have the whole recipe, like I said to start the start of this video. You have the whole recipe to make your own aliens with their own characteristic, and some examples there to see how it goes. Play straight and crew. Yeah, okay. They are all, if you want to do some merchandising, very cool rules to make trades, when you buy goods, how to sell them, just simple formulas into the fighting fantasy style that will make you be a good merchant. Okay, with the type of supplies, how do you buy it, how do you sell them, and the crew. Yeah, I really loved the way they handled the crew, which shows you what type of crew you have and how efficient they are. You can easily simulate Star Trek, having the Enterprise with all the crews, and all the section of the ship, the different jobs you have on the ship and how efficient they are. So I really love that. Okay, you can play the captain and and try to get the best out of your crew. Some director's advice, yeah, and system generator, which is a classic to the advanced fighting fantasy game where you add the dungeon generator, which is quite cool. And some of the advanced fighting fantasy supplements had some that type of random generating tables. You have the dungeon generator in the basic book, you have the wilderness generator into a hero's companion, you have the city generated into black sand. So yeah, and I've used them once in a while. It creates quite unusual cities or dungeons, and they did that with star system. Huh? Yeah, which you will make your star system with different stars, what kind of planets it will be, what is the main interest into that planet. Okay, yeah, some simple character sheets, vehicle record sheet. Okay, what else? Alien race, the cool tables, a very complete index by the end. Yeah, and all the Kickstarter backer. My name is somewhere in there. Okay. So it was just me flipping through that and just enjoying the moment with you. You know what? It came about at the same time as Starfinder. Okay. There was a big hype around Starfinder. I can understand why. It seems to be a very fine game. But we're in an era, where science fiction games, well, many of them that I see coming, on the market, they seems to want to be complicated games because science fiction seems to be a complicated matter. Okay, you have to detail all the stuff to make it feel real. You don't want that. You don't want to go into that direction. You want a game that gives you a lots of freedom without having your players feeling cheated by the rules or cheated by game master bias or anything. This is a game for you. Okay, this is quite simple. It has its charm. It is tied to the fighting fantasy genre, but in a sense, okay, I'm a very big fan of advanced fighting fantasy. It's not the first time I mention it, but advanced fighting fantasy, it's very tied to the Titan world, like I said, and you have to really love the genre. Okay, I recommend the game, but okay, it's not you don't have the same freedom as in D&D, let's say. But here, this is a toolbox. Okay, the basic game system is about the same as advanced fighting fantasy, but this is a toolbox. When I read that, I really felt that I could recreate any science fiction that I want, and that's why I'm making a big scoop here. But probably I'm doing some one shots once in a while into the RPGS super setting book. I've talked about it once in a while on my channel. You may check this out. And the RPGS 2 is in science fiction. So I may make an experiment, RPGS 2. And frankly, I'm very, very tempted to do it with Stellar Adventures only. Okay, trying this game to run every every space region that is in there, because every chapter is a new region in space, in that universe. Okay, the RPGS universe. So yeah, I may be tempted to try this game, and I feel that I could do it. Okay, it's not a very big book, but you have everything you need to get you started and do the science fiction that you want. That's the feeling that I have. I still have to try it, and I may make a full review eventually of that game. But that was my 2 nights ramble, talking and being enthusiastic about this game. Okay, that looks like an old school role playing game, but you can do pretty much cool stuff with that. Okay, enough of that. So it was my tonight's ramble. François Letarte, JDR D30, and up to next time. I hope you have as much fun in your life as in your games. Goodbye.